So we've talked about resonance and fractals and integrity and how they all fit together. So now we're going to talk about holograms. Now, you actually know what a hologram is. In fact, I've got one here from the tourist place around the corner because I'm lucky enough to live in the beautiful Blue Mountains. So this is just a postcard from, so it's these three-dimensional images. So you may have seen them before or not. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to come across on the video, but hopefully you'll know what I mean. So a hologram is actually created from a laser. So if we actually understand a little bit about how a hologram is made, it helps us understand many of the things that we see. And it is interesting how many creation myths actually follow the same steps as creating a hologram. So how do we create a hologram? Well, we start with a laser. Now remember, our laser is coherent light, so it's a light that is in integrity. You know, so in the beginning everything was one, you know, and then the first thing that happens is, so we shoot our laser through a prism of some description, and we end up with two different beams. So now we know, because effectively really all we've done is split it into two, we know that both of these beams are still the same. So, you know, in our creation myths, you know, the spirit of God moved upon the water, and then we had light and dark, night and day. We had, in other words, two separate beams. And then what we do is with one of our beams, we actually, that gets bounced off our, here we have a classic apple or something. So we actually bounce one of the beams off whatever it is we want to take a hologram of. The other one just is as is. And then I'm just going to have these here as mirrors. Down here is, if you like, this is your holographic film. So what happens is you then recombine the beam. Now, a holographic film is very different to a normal film. So in a normal film, it's just patterns of light and dark. I guess, you know, if we're talking about light and dark, it's the two separate beams. They're very, very obvious on the film, but a holographic film doesn't look anything like that. It just looks like a scatter pattern of light. And so one of the differences between a hologram and a normal film is that we need to then take our holographic film, shine, I hope you can see this, shine the same laser, oops, oh, it's got a little bit incoherent there. So remembering that a laser is coherent light. So we need to shine that same coherent light back through our holographic film, and then we will actually get, oops, my hologram is not as good as the original. All right, so this is how we make a hologram. So it's actually this process that ends up with our three-dimensional images. Now, a lot of psychology, science, physics, they're beginning to understand that either the world that we live in either is a hologram, or it's certainly behaves very much like a hologram. So if you think about it, I mean, it's a lot of what we talk about with energy work, you know, the two polarities, and that in order to manifest, we need to get back into tune and allow that the universal creative flow to flow through us. I mean, a lot of understanding a hologram enables us to really, I guess, give our left brain a way to understand a lot of the things that our right brain instinctively knows. So there are a few interesting properties about holograms that I'd like to go over. So this is our hologram that we were talking about before, the three-dimensional picture that we've probably all seen on postcards like these, or actually most people have holograms on their credit cards. So one of the interesting things about holograms is that, like, if we, with some of the holograms that you might have seen around, like this one, see if I move it around so the light is striking it at different angles, you can see that there's more than one picture here. This is a picture of a wombat, and then they go 2 bats, 3 bats. Sorry, it's a bit of a silly joke really, but you can, the important thing is that on this one piece of paper there is actually more than one image. Now that's a very interesting property of holograms, because they are created from a laser, which, remember, is coherent light. So it isn't just that the light is all the same wavelength and it's all going up and down together, but it's actually in the same plane. So, like, if we were to look at the light front on, so to speak, so some holograms might be in this plane, so that they're just going up and down in that plane. Some of them might be horizontal, so I guess that's a little bit like how we would be used to a snake moving, but they can actually be at any angle. And that's actually what produces this effect, because when the light is striking the image at the different angles, which is what occurs, of course, when I'm moving the hologram, what it means is that because every hologram is actually produced by a laser, and that laser is at a particular angle, so you can actually produce a number of holograms at slightly different angles, and that's exactly what is happening here. We've actually got 3 holograms on the one single piece of paper, whereas with this one you can see that doesn't occur, because here we only have one hologram. Now, the other interesting property of holograms is that when you get a hologram and you smash it, something very interesting happens. When we get a normal picture and we break it up into bits, we actually get a jigsaw puzzle. Whereas when we have a hologram, we break it up into different bits. What we actually end up with is every single part, every single little broken bit has actually got the entire picture in it. Now, how does that happen? Well, if you remember back to when we were talking about fractals and we were talking about the tree, and every little bit of the tree looked like the whole picture, that's what a fractal does. So that property of holograms tells us that holograms have got a fractal structure. Now, this is really interesting. So, as we said, like, our whole universe is holographic. So that has implications. So, for example, this, the fact that we can have many different holograms right in the same space, but just at slightly different angles to each other. This is effectively what parallel universes are. This is how, because we are living in a holographic universe, well, there are many holographic universes right by each other, but just at slightly different angles. And the fact that a hologram has got a fractal structure to it, well, I mean, essentially that's what enables the whole of fractology to work, because by rebooting the fractal pattern, we are actually able to heal many things and to get things to work the way they were meant to work. So when we put all of those bits together, fractals and resonance and integrity and the fact that we live in a holographic universe, we start to understand that this is the way that everything works. If you like, it's the manual that underlies the whole of our reality.